Hey mates, good morning. It is Saturday, May 8th, 2021, and I have two focuses that I want to make on this video. So, first thing is I want to focus upon the Swamp Buttercup, and then I will talk a bit about Big Darby Creek itself. That's where I am. I'm at the Darby Creek Metro Park. Yeah, going to the Swamp Buttercup, also known as Ranunculus hispidus. They are a large, somewhat colonial flower, and as you can see, there are indeed other ones, with the yellow petals. There's usually up to 5, and they actually do look very similar to that of the Lesser Celandine. But, rest assured, the Swamp Buttercup is a native flower found in Ohio. I think the difference is with the Lesser Celandine, the petals have a much more tube-like shape, whereas the petals on this one kind of has more of a shape of a teardrop. So that's like a way that can help you know the difference. But yeah. And that's why they're also commonly mistaken with Lesser Celandine, is that both flowers have glossy petals. But the Swamp Buttercup is actually very versatile. They can actually survive within well-drained soils as well as wet soils too. So there's actually a couple of different varieties of the Swamp Buttercup. In this case, we're kind of based on the floodplain because, as you can see, to my left is the Big Darby Creek itself. Yeah, the Swamp Buttercup. And it actually falls within the Buttercup family, hence why it's part of the name. And what's fascinating about buttercups is it's actually the largest genus in the Buttercup family within Ohio, with up to 12 different species. And this is one of them, as a matter of fact. Yeah, the Swamp Buttercup. Very versatile in terms of where they can grow. Alrighty, so now, switching gears, we're going to talk a little bit about the Big Darby Creek itself. So, the Big Darby Creek is actually a very well-known river in the state of Ohio. It technically traverses through 6 separate counties towards central west Ohio. So it starts all the way in Logan County at the Big Darby Headwaters Nature Preserve in Logan County, as I said. And then it ends all the way at Circleville in Pickaway County, where it will meet with the Scioto River. But the Big Darby Creek has an extremely important value to Ohio's ecosystem. It's the case because, well, the Big Darby Creek is both a state scenic and national river. So it's recognized both state and nationally. So this has a big designation. And that's the case because, well, there's up to 40-some separate species of mussels. And not only that, but you can also find a couple of hundred separate species of freshwater fish as well. And just the sheer amount of diversity of birds, too, that you can find here. So that is what makes the Big Darby Creek one of the most biodiverse freshwater streams in the country. Not just in Ohio, but the country. So I think we can understand why places like this deserve such protection. Now, like in terms of the history, the Wyandot Indians actually settled in this area. This is where they were, but then as the European settlers were coming by, they knew that this river was called the Olentangy River at one point, which basically means the river of red-faced paint, something of the sort. And in terms of why they called it that, I'm not really sure. But then, as surveyors were in this area, fun fact, George Washington was actually indeed a famous surveyor, but he didn't necessarily survey this area. But that's just something to note about his life too. But aside from that, the reason that this river is called Big Darby Creek is apparently legend has it that settlers back in the day, they actually met with a fellow Native American during the time who lived at the mouth of the river, who apparently went by the name of Darby. And pretty much that was how the name really stuck ever since then. Wow. It would just be nice if it wasn't as flooded, because, yeah, I mean, it's just better to look at when it's not all murky like it is. Because I've actually seen it before when it's, relatively calm, and the water is actually very clear too. But yeah, this Big Darby Creek is actually an example of a post-glacial river too. So if it weren't for the glaciers that came through this area, this river would not have existed. And that's why in this area you can actually see several hills consisting of glacial till, which is made up of sand, clay, and even silt. Combination of all of them, of all components. And you can also find erratics too. I'm not referring to children necessarily. Oh man. But erratics essentially refer to boulders that you can find in the land. Can't really see them over here, but if you go a little further in that direction, you'll see more of those boulders, which are mostly granite, which essentially really have no business of being out here. Wow. This is going to provide a different perspective of the river, and that should about wrap it up. It's a great day. A lot of sugar maple. And a lot of red maple too. Yeah, that makes sense. Alrighty. I would share that with you guys. Hope you learned something about the Big Darby Creek. It's in Franklin County, so we're practically, we're about 15-20 minutes outside the city of Columbus. So, it's a pretty popular destination. Alright, mates. Enjoy your Saturday, and Journey on a Journey is outwards. Take care, folks.